So we're here with the unmistakable former England cricket captain Michael Vaughan. He's joining us for a lunch, sporting club lunch here in Manchester, Goucher. Vaughanie, good to see you. Thanks for coming today. We're into week 2 of the Cricket World Cup. Not the best start for the defending champions, who of course are England, but they put Bangladesh to the sword. Probably bigger fish to fry, but are we kind of back on course now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this England side for years have been so good at playing white ball cricket, and when they lose a game, they generally bounce back. It's been their mantra since 2015 when Owen Morgan, Trevor Bayliss got the team together, started to play this expansive game. They've been the market leaders for the last few years in how to play white ball cricket. They're the 50-over champs, they're the T20 champs. The hardest World Cup of them all to win is in India. Didn't get off to a great start, just a bit of rustiness. Bowlers looked a little bit shy of a bit of match practice because of the rained off games, the warm-up games, but they bounced back well against Bangladesh. You know, you'd expect England to make the semi-finals, and then it comes down to, can you produce 2 performances? They did it in 19 when they beat the Aussies in the semi-final at Edgbaston, and then obviously beating New Zealand with a little bit of fortune, super over styly, but yeah, they're a good side. I guess the bowling's a little bit of a concern on Indian wickets, but the batting's phenomenal. They've got a batting unit that's consistent, powerful, and they've got all the tools required to get big scores.
So semi-finals, and then as you say, it's whoever performs on the day. Who's going to join them in the semi-finals? India, surely.
Well, whoever beats India will win the World Cup. I mean,
Yeah.
India at home on those wickets, they're a team that generally very rarely loses in their own backyard. But when you get to semi-finals, you only need an iffy start or someone from the opposition to do something very, very special, and obviously you can lose a game. But I would think England, India, I think Pakistan will get there on those wickets. And my dark horse actually is South Africa.
Yeah.
South Africa or New Zealand. At this stage, I don't give Australia any hope.
Sure.
You know, their batting just looks a little bit 1980s styly. They only have 2 spinners, one being Glenn Maxwell Zampa. He struggled against India. Most spinners do struggle against India, but you know, they just look like they haven't quite got the formula right in terms of personnel. But yeah, Pakistan, England, South Africa and India, they're my 4.
And if I've had to pin you down and force a winner, you go India?
India are winning it,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I just look at recent history. 2011, the World Cup was in India. India won it. 15, it was in Australia. Australia won it. 19, it was in England. England won it. There's a common trend where the host nations are lifting the trophy, and there's many reasons why that is. I mean, it's a long tournament. You're at home. I know it's hard for India at home because they can't just walk the streets and have a normal life, but they'll feel more comfortable in India than you do when you're away from home. And on those wickets, they're formidable. They've got every tool. They've got the pace. They've got the 3 twins, the trio of spinners that are exceptional. And the one thing I'll say is their batting's not that deep. So if you can get them 2 or 3 down early, which Australia actually did in the first game,
Yeah.
and then Mitchell Marsh dropped Virat Kohli quite cheaply early. If he'd have caught that catch, and it was an easy catch, Australia could have won that game. So the one thing that India don't have is depth in their batting, but they might not need it. They might not need it because that top order is so powerful.
You mentioned 2019, and I know the 2003 Rugby World Cup and the final and the way that England won and the drama, less than 30 seconds to go. I know that inspired you and you wanted to repeat those sort of scenes of celebration 2 years later with the Ashes. I was there and I thought, it's impossible to see a more dramatic sporting occasion than that. And then 2019, Cricket World Cup final, I was there, you were there. And just the most extraordinary game of cricket. I can't see how that can ever be beaten, can you?
No.
Especially from an English perspective.
No, I mean, it was nearly impossible to beat. I mean, the drama of the day, low scorer. We've been so used to seeing England get 350, 400. And suddenly we're at Lords in a final. It's a little bit of an old school nibbler. Perfect for New Zealand. They get a normal score, nothing dramatic. And then in the chase, England just kept on losing wickets. Every time you thought a partnership developed, they lost a wicket. Trent Boult caught Ben Stokes on the boundary and then stood on the sponge. I think that would have been game over. Ben Stokes diving in for that 2 run from the boundary. The ball hits the bat, goes for 4. You start going, wait a minute, is it written in the stars? They get to the super over. And you always felt that England were going to win that game. And I'm a big believer in sport. If you do the right things over a period of time, you earn the right to have a bit of fortune. And I fundamentally believe that England had earned the right to get that day to go their way in terms of the rub of the green. And that's why this World Cup's quite hard for me to pick, because I don't know if India have done enough in the last few years to absolutely qualify for that little bit of luck that you all need.
You can't factor in what happened in that World Cup final either, can you?
No, you can't.
England nearly lost it 2 or 3 times before they won it.
Well, yeah, they never really won it until they'd won it.
That's right. That's right.
You know, it was one of those days where you probably thought England were going to chase the score because New Zealand didn't get a massive total, but you never felt they were getting it because New Zealand are skillful, they were quite tight in the field. But yeah, England completely deserved that element of fortune, and that's why at the minute I'm just looking, thinking, who has really earned the right to win this World Cup? And I don't think there's one team that really stands out.
Ben Stokes is man of the match in the Cricket World Cup final. A month later, he produces that innings at Headingley, your beloved Headingley. Yeah. And I speak to Andrew Strauss not long afterwards, and he said he thought in his lifetime that's the greatest Test innings he's ever seen, because it was departmentalised, wasn't it? Yeah. From some almost boycott-esque to begin with. Into Viv Richards at the end. Well, I mean, that was an extraordinary 100, match-winning 100.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go beyond Andrew Strauss and say that Geoffrey Boycott even said it was the best Test innings that
even above his own.
Well, correct, and Geoffrey had plenty of them. To think that Geoffrey put Ben Stokes' innings as the best that he has seen, it must be. I mean, to go from a position of absolutely no chance. I think his first 50 came off 100 and plenty of balls. He just kind of dug in there, and all of a sudden he got into this 6-hitting mode and reverse sweeps, little ramps off Pat Cummins, reverse ramps, and again it was bizarre. Once they got to within like 30 or 40, it was on the Jack Leach down the other end. You're thinking they're going to win this. You know, Ben Stokes is going to win this on his own.
Needed a bit of luck, as you always do.
Well, that run out, the run out from Nathan Lyon, and I guess the poor review, Tim Payne, he reviewed an LBW which was never going to be out, and then obviously Nathan Lyon had him out LBW in what was the last over. But I reckon Ben Stokes, 2019, the Test innings at Henley, and I reckon he got very close in 2023, the Test innings that he played at Lord's. I think I've seen Ben Stokes play, you could argue, 2 of the 5 greatest Test match innings that an England player has ever produced.
Quick question, it's a bit of a pub question, but you did captain Freddie Flintoff. And Freddie's stats don't suggest he was one of the great players, but he won matches, didn't he? Both of them you didn't captain, obviously, because you're not that old, but we all remember Beefy and his prime, and now Ben Stokes. It's an obvious question, but just for the fun of it, who's the standout of those 3?
I'm having Andrew Flintoff in my team all the time. Because of what he did to me. I would never talk against Freddie, but I will say, if you ask me who the greatest cricketer that England have ever produced, it's Ben Stokes.
Really?
You know, I think he's that good. You only have to look at, the 2 innings that I've mentioned. He's won England a 50-over World Cup final. He's won them a T20 World Cup final. 2 of the greatest Test innings that we've ever seen. And in the last 18 months, he's delivered in Test match cricket something that no one has ever delivered as a captain. He's changed the way we think about Test match cricket. So he's the batter. He's bowled some incredible spells. You actually go back to the innings that he played at Henley in 19. It started with his bowling spell because he bowled Australia out on one leg. Jofra Archer was struggling. Ben bowled, I think, a 13 or 14 over burst, got them out, and then he obviously changed the target down. But his batting, his bowling, his fielding, his personnel, and now his captaincy. I don't think we've ever produced a better cricketer than that.
The Summers Ashes have just gone. You've just referred to it. Ben producing another incredible innings. And it was 2-2, which, bearing in mind they were 2-0 down, and if some buts we know, but I think it was 2-1, wasn't it, when they were, shall we say, in pole position to win in Manchester as well, and they lost 2 days, and then they won final. So it's probably not up there with 2005, and probably not up there with 81, but if maybe they'd won at Old Trafford, it might well have been.
So it was close.
Yeah.
It really was close. I remember David Lloyd, when he was coach of England in Zimbabwe, came out with that famous quote, "We murdered them."
Yeah.
England murdered Australia this summer.
Yeah.
How Australia won those first 2 games, I'll never know. It was stupidity by England at Lord's with the way that they batted. Nathan Lyon's walking off, and suddenly they just gifted Australia 5 or 6 quick wickets. Edgbaston, they dominated the game. Australia just had that know-how on the last day. I didn't think we quite got the tactics right. Dropped too many chances.
Yes.
Johnny Bairstow didn't have a great game behind the sticks, but you look back at the summer and think, if it was a boxing match, I honestly think you'd have thrown the towel in for Australia after about 8 rounds. You just felt that, most sessions you just felt that Australia were taking punches.
Yeah.
England were throwing plenty of punches. But Australia had a great chance at Headingley.
Yeah.
They should have won that game.
Yes, they did, yeah.
They should have won that game. In the second innings, they were dominating play. Labuschagne, Lapslog, Moeen Ali to deep mid-wicket. About 4 balls later, Steve Smith hit one straight to mid-wicket.
Yeah.
Completely dominating that test match. I think of the two teams, Australia must have a huge amount of regrets. Because in 2019, they drew that series where they should have won. They dominated that series. And in this series, they had so many opportunities, having gone 2-0 up in this. I've never seen an Australian side play Test cricket so timidly. You think back to Australia in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, even up till 2019, they were always on the front foot, always trying to be positive, aggressive. And this Australian side, from going 2-0 up, they played so safe. And that they'll talk the game, saying, "Oh, we've still got the Ashes," but to win overseas and to win in your opponent's backyard is the hardest thing to do. And Australia will, I think, particularly a lot of the players who won't come back next time, they'll regret that. They should have won that, having been 2-0 up.
Now, you played only 6 tests, so it feels sort of bad to sort of hone in on 2005, because you did plenty of other things as well. Not least 2002, 2003, when you were the #1 batsman in the world. But we'll never forget 05 and the drama. You never will either. You're talking about it to this day about it. And there's a reason for it, which was the high drama. That was a great, great Australian team as well. And are those memories, 18 years on, as vivid now as they were back then?
Not as vivid, but I remember key elements of why it happened.
Yeah.
And the key elements was sticking together with the team for 2 years, building a culture around the dressing room of the way that we wanted to play, which was very aggressive, getting on the front foot, allowing players to express themselves, staying loyal to those players that expressed themselves but it didn't come off, allowed players to make mistakes. That's fine, as long as you have a principle and a goal within your group. We had that. I think we had an inner fight. I think you need to pick players that just naturally have that inner fight to really scrap. There's no sporting team that can't survive without having that scrapping mentality, because you can't play pure all the time. And characters, you need characters in the group. You need characters that are expressive, can grab the moment. And we had Peterson, we had Freddie Flintoff, Simon Jones was incredible with the ball. And then we had rock solid individuals like Strauss and Trescothick, Geraint Jones. Ian Bell just came into the side as a youngster, but contributed as a young player. And I always go back to win major series in cricket, you need bowlers. I as the captain can't get the plaudits without getting 20 wickets.
20 wickets.
20 wickets, and to have Hogarth, Harmison, Flintoff, Jones and Ashley Giles. I always say captains get far too much praise when it's going well, and they get far too much criticism when it's not going quite so well. And usually it's going well when you've got good bowlers, and it's not going so well when your bowlers are injured or you're kind of bedding a few youngsters. So culture's everything in sport. You've got to create that culture in the dressing room, you've got to create that vibe around the camp, and you've got to stay very, very consistent with your selection. We'll
never know, of course, ifs and buts. Key turning points, undoubtedly, Glenn McGrath turning his ankle before the start of the Edgbaston test. We all know you put the ball there, Ronnie. And secondly, that incredible ending where you've pretty much won it, and you're watching defeat loom larger and larger and larger in front of you, and you get away with it and you win by 2 runs. But is it fair to say against that team, if you'd lost that second test, and in the manner of losing it, where you had it all wrapped up, you only had 2 wickets to go, you needed 109 runs, if you'd lost that, was there no way back?
No chance. I go before that. I reckon if Ricky Ponting had batted first, would have lost that test.
Oh, the second test, because they won the first, hadn't they?
Because the pitch was pretty dry, and Shane Warne was ragging it square in the second innings. I think he ended up with 6. If we'd have had to chase 200 on that pitch back last, I don't think we'd have got anywhere close because of Shane Warne. Again, that's the element of luck. McGrath being stretched off, Ricky Ponting, that's out of my control. Ricky Ponting getting his decision wrong. We all do it as a captain, but he got it wrong on that occasion. And then just seeing the game pan out, and that was the game that Freddie really came to light. He got 250, smacked it around the park and then produced 2 or 3 spells that were out of this world.
Really fast, weren't they?
Yeah, fast. And then Kevin Peterson just continuing on for his debut at Lords.
Yeah.
I actually went away from Edgbaston thinking we're going to win this. Because
the whole series.
Yeah, I just felt like the whole team had contributed something. So if you're arriving, for the 3rd Test match, and this was an Australian team that we didn't really know how to beat because they were that good. They never really lost.
Yeah.
I'd beaten them in 1 Test match in Sydney in 2003, so that gave me a lot of confidence actually. That 1 Test match feature that they can be beaten, but to do it over the course of a 5-match series was always going to be difficult. But when you leave a Test match and it's the 2nd Test match of the summer, and you look around the dressing room and every single person had contributed something. I'd not contributed a huge amount with the bat, but I felt I'd used a little bit of tactical nous and energised the team with 1 or 2 things. So I felt quite confident. But I went from 1 to 11 and every single player had done something. Geraint Jones taking the catch, a massive confidence boost for him. So we were arriving at Old Trafford full of hope and ambition. And I guess that sport is all about confidence. It's all about the belief in the room. We can talk the game and we can say, oh, we're all playing so great, but actually it's the inner chat. I always go back to Stephen Peters' book, the Chimp Management, and I didn't read that until obviously after 05, but he's so right about this chimp that talks to you. You need to get the chimp talking positively.
Voice in the head. Yeah.
You have to get that inner kind of, whatever the person is inside you, you have to get that person speaking positively to you.
Freddie was the sort of, I say the standout. Everybody stood out. Freddie obviously had an extraordinary series. 2 other names I want to throw into the mix. One is people don't talk about him, about that series particularly, because England won and Australia lost. But Shane Warne in that series was extraordinary, wasn't he?
Yeah, 40 wickets. I should know this, but I don't think he got more than 40 wickets in any other Ashes series. He had the ball on the string. The most important aspect from our point of view is that we accepted at the start of the series, me, the coach, senior players, we're all talking to the team and saying, look, McGrath and Warne will get wickets. It's an absolute unwritten rule. They will get wickets. The key to them, though, is us scoring off them. So in previous series, we looked at the data and they'd got loads of wickets and they were kind of going at 2.2 runs and over.
Yeah, you try to keep them out.
So you're kind of just playing defensively and almost trying to score up the other end. It's impossible. You've got Gillespie, you've got Brett Lee, you've got quality seamers at the other end. So our mantra was very, very clear: you've got to score. So every time that Warne is on,
sounds like baseball to me.
Yeah, you have to look to score, and I think Warne went at 3.4s or 3.5. McGrath very similar. And I fundamentally believe that's why we won the series, because we managed to, while we were out there, even though they were getting wickets, we were still scoring, and that was the key. Against that world-class Australian side, I think you're beyond your capabilities when you start thinking that you can bat 140 overs against them. My belief was, can we bat 100? Can we bat 100 and get 330 to 360?
Get the same runs that you would batting 140 overs.
Yeah, can we do that? And if we do that, I think we're in the game with our bowling attack. So we gave the players a clear message that if you feel that Shane Warne can be whacked out the ground, try it.
Go for it.
Go for it.
Another name you mentioned, Kevin Peterson. He was new to us on the Test scene. He had the badger look in his hair, and obviously subsequently there were a few issues, etc. He blotted his copybook. But one thing that everybody, and I think you'll be saying the same, is he was an extraordinary talent, and he really showed it on that. The people sometimes forget about the 5th Test, where you had to avoid defeat, otherwise you're going to lose. You're going to draw the Ashes, and the Aussies would retain them, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So you're in trouble, and he decided attack was the best form of defence.
Yeah, I mean he was the best player I played with, for England. I mean, Freddie's the best all-round cricketer, but in terms of a batter, Trescothick came very, very close. I think if Trez had not gone through his illnesses, he would have broken all the records. But Peterson was a freak. If you actually look at Peterson's career, he's dismantled great bowlers. Warner McGrath, Muralitharan, Dale Steyn Pollock. Real quality bowlers, the spinners of India. Harbhajan, just dismantled them. There's not many players in the history of the game that have dismantled the best bowlers of the era. And he just had this free spirit. He was struggling a bit at the Oval actually on that last day. He was getting peppered by Brett Lee. And I remember I was having my plum chicken in the canteen, and I don't know how many we were had at lunch, but it wasn't many, maybe 1:30. Australia are absolutely almost dominating that last day. They were getting the wickets. They knew that they could easily chase 220, 230, even if it was in 30, 40 overs. The pitch was pure, and they'd have got that. And I remember being called into the dressing room, and Kev was there, and he said, Skip, what am I going to do, what am I going to do? And I said, well, I'm just having my plum chicken. And no, speak to me. I said, just attack, go for them. So you've been attacking all summer, so I don't want you to go into your shell now. I didn't expect him to go out from first ball, swinging from his ring and top edges. And
he was hitting sixes off his nose from Brett Lee, wasn't he?
Yeah, and there was a drop. I think Sean Tate dropped him at fine leg. Yeah. I think one went short at kind of deep square. Yeah. I think it was just before lunch that Warney dropped him at first slip. Yeah. So we had a bit of fortune, but I wanted the team around that time to always take the positive option. I wanted them always to be aggressive. I wouldn't have really been too concerned if we'd have lost that last day playing the way that we play. But I also knew by playing the way that we'd played for the previous 4 games, it generally works. You know, in that kind of tight situation, if you take the positive option. And that's why I really admire this England team. They always take the positive option. They always go for it. There's times where you're watching and kind of hide behind the curtain. You think, oh no, what's happening? And I'm sure everyone was doing the same when Kevin went out after lunch. Yeah. On that last day at the Oval, I can imagine people going, oh, just dig in, leave the ball. But
well, they're doing it now, aren't they? Still, somebody does a shot and he's out and caught the boundary. What are you doing? Yeah. But yeah, I guess you've got to stick by your principles.
Principles are everything, particularly under pressure. Yeah. You know, they always get challenged when the pressure moment comes. And are you going to be brave enough and strong enough as a group to buy into that principle at the key moment? And fortunately, we had Kevin Peterson to do that.
I remember Rooty. Do you remember his first shot coming in was the attempted ramp?
I think it was
Toughest, wasn't it? Even Toughest going, oh no. But I mean, you know, they're getting people out of the bars, they're getting people out of the corporate hospitality, they're getting bums on seats again.
Yeah, but I like it because there's more actually science in what he did than people give credit for. Because on that day 3, it was a pressure day, and see Joe do that first ball almost sent the message to everyone in the ground saying it's just a game of cricket. Yeah, that's all it is. It's a game of cricket, and we're going to come out of Australia. And within 10 or 15 minutes, I think he'd reverse swept. Might have been Scotty Bolden for 2 sixes over third, and suddenly looking down at the field from Australia having three slips in a goal, he'd got 2 slips, spread field, cover point on the boundary, and the whole momentum shifted. England should have won that game. They lost it not because of the declaration. I never felt the declaration. I thought it was a brave deckie from Ben on day 1, and I personally wouldn't have done it, but I thought they lost the game with the way that they batted in the second innings. They just went too risky.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Yeah. Now, you early retired in 2009, it's not that long ago, and you know, you're captaining England the T20, you're captaining England the ODI side, and of course you're a Test captain. But is it fair to say, even in the 14-year period, the game has evolved and changed, and they're doing things that not even you guys did?
The batting now is just phenomenal. The way that they hit the ball, you know, it just becomes second nature that if the ball's a length ball, it's just going to travel out the ground, and they make it look so easy just getting the leg out of the way and striking it. It's not easy to smack a ball 70, 80 metres. These ramp shots and flicks that, I mean, Joe Root, I don't think I've seen him miss one. Yeah. I mean, that's about the first ball of day 3 he missed Pat Cummins. That's the only one I've ever seen him miss.
I remember KP and the consternation when he did the reverse sweep off, I think Mooley, wasn't it, for 6. I mean, my God, they're all doing it now.
Yeah, they are. And you know, if you're a young player and you're coming through the system, if you're not teaching yourself to hit the ball 360, and if you're not teaching yourself that kind of length ball that's going to hit off stump or just miss off stump, 3 different options for that ball, you're actually not training well enough. Yeah. You know, you've got to have 3 or 4 different options for every different scenario, because the game is about hitting the ball where the fielders aren't. Yeah. And I think all the skilled players of this era, they realise where the fielders are and go, well, I've got this shot to play to make sure the ball goes into that vacant space. I think it's a great game to watch now.
And the fielding as well. It's now common knowledge, isn't it? Somebody catches it over the boundary, flips it back. It's almost a regulation catch now.
I mean, I'm no one to really comment on fielding, but I generally think we see in this era great catches, but I don't think catching is as good as potentially back in the day. I think if you go back through the 80s and 90s, some of the cordons were rocks. That Australian cordon with Mark Waugh, Shane Warne, Alan Border. Yeah. The England cordon of Strauss, Swan and Collingwood. They never dropped anything. Whereas if you look at this era, I mean, look at the Ashes. How many simple catches were dropped? Many. Sure. So it's an era where the unexpected catch is taken, but the basic catches, I reckon there's more dropped now than there ever has been. Really? Which is amazing, really.
Well, we could talk all day, but we've got a lunch to go and do. So thank you for your time,
Got a
Michael.
steak to have.
Let's go and have a big piece of steak.